Good afternoon. I'm joined by the agency heads and leaders from the FBI, the State Attorney's Office, the Nassau County Sheriff's Office, and the Naval Criminal Investigative Service to share information on a recently concluded human trafficking operation, Operation Cross Country. Every year, we undertake a human trafficking operation with these law enforcement partners represented here today. These operations, spearheaded nationally by the FBI, are mission-driven to rescue, traffic juveniles and women, and to build cases against those who profit from the misery of human trafficking. Locally, these yearly operations include partnership with the Northeast Florida Human Trafficking Coalition, a consortium of dedicated criminal justice and social service providers, all committed to ending human trafficking while providing necessary support to victims. The coalition provides vital support and resources to women and children who are identified in these operations as victims of human trafficking. Coalition members understand that we must combine public education, prevention strategies, victim support, and enforcement together to make meaningful change in the human trafficking landscape. The Jacksonville portion of this operation spanned 2 days. This operation drew investigators from many JSO specialized units, including integrity, vice, narcotics, and computer forensics. JSO detectives worked side by side with investigators from the FBI, the NCIS, and the SAO during this operation. And throughout the operation, our partnership with the Northeast Florida Human Trafficking Coalition provided intervention and support services to assist the identified women with a way out of the world of human trafficking. Over 30 arrests were made during the Jacksonville portion of this national operation. While many trafficked women were identified, none of them are juveniles. However, outside the 2-day local operation, but within the framework of the national operation, a teenage trafficking victim was rescued. Because of the juvenile's minor status, I'm not going to provide any additional information on that child other than to report that the child is safe. I would like to highlight 2 arrests, those of Michael Brockway and Robert Horvath. Both adult men were arrested in sting operations in which they traveled to locations to have sex with children. Detectives purporting themselves to be 13 and 14-year-old girls, respectively, began online conversations with Brockway and Horvath in which they agreed to engage in a sex act with them. When Brockway and Horvath traveled to locations to meet the children, with whom they had planned to engage in sex acts, they were arrested by investigators for traveling to meet a minor for unlawful sexual conduct. As a result, they are facing very serious criminal penalties as they are prosecuted by our partners at the State Attorney's Office. Although it is intentionally kept well veiled by those that profit off of it, human trafficking is very real in our community. It is a web of crimes that not only typically hides in plain sight, but also feeds on social disenfranchisement of its victims. These operations shed some needed light in the shadowed world. I want to thank the dedicated investigators from JSO and our partner agencies for their hard work of this operation and year-round to end human trafficking in our community. Now, Sheriff Bill Leeper will discuss Nassau County portion of this operation. After he speaks, Asak Markovsky will speak to the national lens of the operation across the country. Bill?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sheriff Waters, for hosting this news conference. The reason why we are successful is because we all work together and we like it. A couple of weeks ago, we conducted a 3-day operation in Nassau County, focusing on escorts that utilize social media sites to solicit for prostitution, as well as those soliciting prostitution. Our narcotics vice unit worked with JSO Vice, FBI, Homeland Security Investigations, and North Florida HIDA to arrest 24 individuals for engaging in prostitution, soliciting prostitution, possession of illegal drugs, and sale of illegal drugs. They range from age 23 to 53. 4 of those we arrested were from Nassau County. The rest were from Jacksonville, Orange Park, Lake City, and parts of Georgia. The illicit markets of prostitution and sex trafficking are like any other markets. It's driven by demand. The need for people to provide a supply for pimps and traffickers to distribute the supply to buyers would not exist without demand. A lot of these prostitutes are victims of the sex trade. There are people who go into it before they were adults and end up trapped in it. It gives us an opportunity to get them out of that trade, to rescue them from that, especially if we can find them while they are still juveniles. In this operation, we did rescue one adult female who was being sex trafficked. Just to give you an idea of what traffickers do to their so-called property, her pimp had actually, if you look at your fingers, look at your fingerprints, her pimp actually burned her fingerprints off to make it harder for her to be identified, especially if she ends up dead somewhere in a ditch. The thing to remember is that these aren't victimless crimes. Human trafficking and prostitution ruin the lives of everyone involved. Prostitution and human trafficking results in exploitation, disease, dysfunction, drug and alcohol addiction, violence, and broken families. Soliciting a prostitute when you're soliciting someone with the purpose of sex for money, that is a crime. You may go out and you may find a prostitute, or like in this case, you may go out and you may find a police officer and end up in jail. Once again, our goal is to rescue these young ladies, so the Johns, or the buyers, need to know we are going after them with other operations. And when we find you, we will lock you up. I think all those arrested were surprised. Some of them were ashamed of their activities. Just about all of them said, "It's my first time." But it's probably not. It's kind of like the standard line we all hear, like a drunk driver saying they just had 2 beers. We all know that the top 3 illegal moneymakers are dope, humans, and guns. And one of those you can sell over and over again. I want to just touch on a few of those that we arrested in Nassau County, just to give our community an idea of what goes on right here that we deal with. This is Joshua Robert Baker. He's 23 from Yulee. He was arrested for engaging in prostitution. He contacted an undercover detective via cell phone through an online posting and made an agreement to pay $150 for 30 minutes of sex. He traveled to a local hotel and met an undercover detective in the lobby. While they were in the elevator going up to the room, he pulled out his money from his pocket and began counting it. While walking to the room, he told the undercover detective that he always gets nervous when he does this. Hopefully he won't get nervous in jail. He was actually on his lunch break from work, and he is also on probation for DUI. This is Christopher Dwayne Ford, 45 years old from Yulee. He was arrested for soliciting prostitution. He engaged in a conversation with an undercover detective in a convenience store, commenting on her outfit, and then his comments became sexual in nature. He made arrangements to pay the undercover detective for oral sex. After he was arrested, he stated he was a former police officer in Georgia, and he had no interest in completing the sex act. He was just gathering intel so he could notify law enforcement. By the way, he was also arrested previously for impersonating a police officer. This is Kathy Renee Mullins, 43, from Jacksonville. She was arrested for soliciting prostitution, possession of cocaine, and possession of a controlled substance. She advertised sex online and was contacted by an undercover detective and agreed to travel to a local hotel for sex. While inside the hotel room, she stated she would perform 1 hour of sex for $200. But oh, by the way, she was running a special. For just an additional $40, she would perform anal sex. After she was arrested, illegal narcotics were discovered inside her purse. This is Tamaro Valentino Cogdale, 53, from Jacksonville. He was arrested for engaging in prostitution and sale of a controlled substance. He was contacted by an undercover detective through an online posting. He agreed to a sex act as well as provide illegal drugs. When he traveled to the meeting location, he stated he would provide anal and oral sex for $300. He also tapped his purse, saying he had the other stuff too. When he was taken into custody, he had an 8-ball of cocaine, which is 3.5 grams, and also 5 small bags of cocaine. This is Bo Wayne Joyner, 42, from Lake City. He was arrested for engaging in prostitution. He was contacted from an online posting he made and agreed to travel to a specified location to perform a sex act. When he arrived, he told the undercover detective that he would charge $350 for anal and oral sex. When he was being booked into the jail, he was more concerned about taking a booking photo with a red mark on his forehead and that he had actually just got his hair done. You got to admit his hair does look good. And this is Anisha Alina Perry, 23, from Jacksonville. She was arrested for engaging in prostitution. She was contacted through a recent online posting she made and agreed to come to a designated location for sex. She advised the undercover detective that she would have sex for $250. She is a licensed practical nurse and stated that this was her very first time doing this. She said she was talked into it by a friend who said she could make some quick cash. I wonder if they're still friends. Our ultimate goal is to have one of these operations and we have a blank board. Nobody's there because everyone's got the message. But I doubt that will happen. Despite all this attention today, we could continue this operation and catch more tonight. Because they are tone deaf. They don't pay attention to the law until we hold them accountable. Our message is clear. We don't make it a secret. If we didn't get you in this operation, we will get you in the next operation. Because if you come into our county and you do stuff like this and don't think you're going to be arrested, then you're smoking some funny weed. If there were no Johns or no buyers, there would be no prostitution or sellers and human trafficking. I've made it clear that I refuse to just stand by and allow our community to deteriorate to the point where street-level prostitution and human trafficking is looked upon as a normal part of our local society. These types of illegal activities seem to attract other bad elements, such as drug dealers, thieves, robbers, and other scumbags who prey upon our local residents. It will not be overlooked, tolerated, or condoned within the local communities where we live and raise our children. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Sheriff Waters and Sheriff Leeper, and thanks to all of our partners, only some of whom could be here today, for their assistance in this operation. The investigations you've heard about today are part of Operation Cross Country, an FBI-led effort along with our partners that began in 2003 to stop the trafficking of children. Since then, more than 6,700 children victims of the trafficking have been recovered, and more than 2,750 individuals have been convicted, many now facing 25 years to life in prison for exploiting the most innocent victims in our society. This past month, the FBI hosted Operation Cross Country 13 in partnership with hundreds of local, state, and federal agencies nationwide. Together, they located over 200 victims of sex trafficking and identified and arrested 126 individuals for child sexual exploitation or other human trafficking offenses. Locally, FBI agents from the Jacksonville Division work with representatives from more than 20 local, state, and federal agencies, including those you see here today. Across our territory, which covers 40 counties from here to the Panhandle, we recovered 2 children victims of trafficking, 2 adult victims of trafficking, and arrested 16 individuals for traveling to meet with a minor, 2 of whom you've heard about today. In addition, 2 more children who had been reported missing were safely recovered. Operation Cross Country is one of our most important partnerships. As we speak, every FBI office across the country is working to stop human trafficking. It is a heinous crime that impacts all races and ethnicities and communities of all sizes. Operation Cross Country helps spotlight this problem and sends a message that we will all remain vigilant to take down those who prey on our country's most innocent population. And that work doesn't stop with the conclusion of Operation Cross Country. Throughout the year, our task force here in North Florida will continue to share intelligence to help identify national criminal networks involved in trafficking. And we will all focus on more community education and outreach to hotels and other businesses in areas where trafficking is of concern. The success of Operation Cross Country and in stopping trafficking overall is in the strength and cooperation of our partnerships. And as you can see, we have extremely strong partners here in North Florida. But we also need help from the public. If you see something that does not feel right, say something, make a phone call. You might just save someone's life. I want to extend a huge thanks from FBI Jacksonville to all of our partners here and throughout our territory for their efforts to stop human trafficking, not just this month, but throughout the year. Thank you.
So thank you all for being here. As you can see, this is a very serious subject and that we take very seriously in the First Coast and all across this country. And if I can answer any questions for you, I will at this moment.
Operation Cross Country, is Operation Hot Summer the name of the local part of this operation?
Yeah, Operation Hot Summer was what we did in Nassau County. It was connected to all of this.
And that operation yielded 24 arrests, and that was a joint operation between the agencies over that 3-day period?
Correct, in Nassau County.
In Nassau County.
Sheriff Leeper, the one you spoke of earlier, you burned the girl's fingertips. See one of your arrests here? Or no?
Yeah, she's unidentified in the bottom right-hand corner.
Sheriff Waters.
Was she arrested to have her fingerprints burned off? Like, what happened to her?
She was arrested, but she's being protected at this time.
Sheriff Waters, with NCIS and all involved as well as part of the partnership, is there any active duty military caught up in this?
Yeah, there's unfortunately, you find those, yes, and but you guys can get a list of those arrested outside of those two a little bit later on.
In this batch, though, of these 26 that we see?
I'll let Bill speak to those. This group here, I'm not sure about those. I'll get you the answer later on. Yes, ma'am.
Were any of those arrested accused of selling sex? Were there inquiries made into whether they were being trafficked? I know you said you wanted to help victims. Why arrest people if at least that one person, if she's being trafficked?
I'll let Bill answer that one.
Why arrest people? Because it's a crime.
If she's a victim, okay.
Well, she was arrested for what she did, but we are going to protect her identity. We're going to protect her, so her pimps, her traffickers can't get back in touch with her. So, it's people like that start out when they're kids and they grow into adults, still in this trade, and it just destroys their life. And she's going to wind up dead somewhere. That's probably a guarantee if she don't get out of this. So that's why we're trying to help her.
Thank you, Chair.